I'm Max Melton, and this is Cardinals Corner on Arizona Sports.
Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports.
Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports with Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval.
What's going on, Bird Gang? Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval here for another edition of Cardinals Corner. I hope all of you are staying cool and maybe in a pool somewhere. Maybe you're listening to this in a pool, and if you are, I'm really jealous. But we're back to bring you another edition, and this time we are going to talk about the top 3 questions each of us have ahead of training camp. So first of all, Lauren, welcome back, and happy birthday, belated birthday.
Thank you.
How was it?
It was wonderful. I had some family in from Chicago visiting, and my sister's in town, so it was a whole little Koval family get-together.
Awesome. A Koval Oval.
Yes. yes. It was nice.
Good. That's great. Well, let's just get right into it. What's your let's go 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
What's your third biggest question you have for the Cardinals right now?
Who wide receiver number 2 is
Okay.
on this team. So I think everybody knows Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver number 1. That's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
He's the obvious pick. Wide receiver 2, to me, boils down to Michael Wilson and Zay Jones, who sort of emerges. Right now, I think Michael Wilson has the edge heading into training camp because he's familiar with Kyler. He's been on this team. There's just in general a level of familiarity with him, even though he did battle some injuries last season and during his time at Stanford. He still proved that he could be a wide receiver 2 on this team with a little bit of time that I think he did have on the field. Zay Jones is an interesting question heading into the season because we don't know exactly how the Cardinals are going to use him. I would think as a downfield threat because that's what Hollywood was supposed to be for them, and that never really panned out. And that's where I see Jones the most comfortable, especially during his time with the Jags and Trevor Lawrence throwing him the ball. So I'm interested to see if they open up the field a little bit more with him.
Okay, yeah. I mean, those are the two top dogs for sure. I think you can really write in Marvin for wide receiver 1. You can write in Greg Dortch for the slot. But who is going to take really the reins of that position? And like you said, I think I said right away when they got Zay Jones, I thought, hey, that's wide receiver 2. But honestly, listening to Michael Wilson, listening to Kyler Murray, listening to Drew Petzing, all these guys talk about Michael Wilson's production just in the offseason and what he's doing and how he's growing. And I think one of the big things is that he's trying to learn from Marvin on top of being a mentor to Marvin. Like they're talking about releases and Michael Wilson.
Perspicacious.
Yes. Thank you for saying it because I was going to not say it right. So that's that Stanford education for Michael Wilson, who used that to describe Marvin Harrison, who Marvin, he was like, he knows not even to bring that to my attention. Like, I don't need that.
No.
I don't know what that word is.
No.
But that's the thing is you're seeing that and you're seeing what Kyler says about him and the extra work that you're seeing him put in, with Trey McBride, with Marvin, with Kyler. Like that alone is, giving him that edge for sure. It's, can he stay healthy? That's going to be the big one. And it sucks to say that that's a knock because it's not like he's going out of his way. Like he's not putting himself in a position to get injured. He's doing everything right.
No, and it's been the question mark his entire football career is, can he stay healthy? He has the build and the physical size to be a wide receiver 2 in the league. It's just, can he continue to stay healthy and actually be on the field for the Cardinals?
Exactly. So if you had to answer the question right now, you put yourself in Petzing's spot, Drew Petzing's spot. Who's wide receiver 2 in your mind right now?
Michael Wilson.
Okay.
And I think that the only reason that could change is if you go out to training camp and Zay Jones proves that he's not only a downfield threat, but he can sort of do the 10, 15 yards that Michael Wilson was doing when he was out on the field for the Cardinals. If he can also solidify that spot for him, I think he jumps Michael Wilson. Yeah,
and I think with Zay, too, is you also have to look at how they're going to play him because Jonathan Gannon, said that he can play all 3 spots. So maybe they have that competition, or maybe Zay kind of shows himself in another position that maybe they can, I don't know, sub in.
Yeah.
But it's very much going to be those 2 guys first are the 2 guys I'll be watching in the wide receivers room. Obviously, everybody's going to be watching Marvin, but from the aspect of who is going to improve this roster moving forward and who's the biggest question marks, like that's going to be the 2 right there.
Exactly. And Marvin opened all of this up to happen in the first place. Making him wide receiver 1 gave the Cardinals so much more flexibility within their wide receiver room that I can't even name the last time that they had that kind of flexibility to sort of plug and play and see where everybody matches up. So that'll be interesting. What's your number 3?
My number 3, and this one's not flashy, by any means, but given what the Cardinals want to do, it's got to be what happens at left guard, because I think we can say the offensive line's pretty solidified. Is it going to be Evan Brown? Is it going to be an Elijah Wilkinson? Is it going to be a John Gaines? Who's going to come into that left guard spot and really secure it? I might be missing somebody off the top of my head, but those guys really stand out to me. I think Evan Brown's the front runner still, but he also likes to play center. I think he prefers to play center. So how much is that even maybe a factor going into training camp with Yelda? I think Yelda's spot at center is pretty secure, but they like competition. If something shakes out differently, how does that all span out? Or does Yelda move over? Like, who knows? Who knows if we get to that point? But I think right now there's just so many options that they can go with, but they have to nail down somebody that can really be a cohesive part of this team, because the run game at the end of the day is their bread and butter, and they've got to get a mauler at that left guard spot to really be next to Paris and really grow that line.
What kind of benchmarks would you be looking for in training camp to see who can sort of solidify that role?
I really want to see, one, Paris's relationship just on the field,
Okay.
just even that on and off the field. I mean, that was a big thing last year with him and Will Hernandez. And now with Will standing over on the right side, from all indications, that's what he's going to do. Paris moving back to left, like that's opening up another kind of building chemistry moment. So I'm going to be looking at that a lot. And I'm just going to be looking at who's getting first reps right away, who's kind of sliding in there every once in a while. I mean, they're going to be rotating guys in, but who's really being that mainstay day in and day out with the first team. I think that's the big thing for me.
And do you think somebody like a rookie, like do you think Isaiah could come in and compete for that
Isaiah,
spot?
That's the name I was escaping me.
Yes.
Isaiah is a dark horse, I think, because he is exactly what they want. He's a run. He loves blocking the run. I mean, he's a tip Ryman, but he's an offensive lineman.
Well, they did both come from Illinois.
Exactly. Yeah, you know a lot about Illinois.
Yeah,
so.
all right.
But yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing is you get this young guy who's just brings you that spark. That might be it. But it's like you go to the other side, you've got Evan Brown who's done it before. So it's almost like the Mike Wilson, Zay Jones thing.
Like a veteran rookie sort of comparison. What way do you want to go?
Yeah, first year, second year guy. But yeah, basically like that. Like, do you want to go with this young guy who might have to grow a little bit, so have some growing pains, or do you want this vet who might not be the, flashiest, most explosive guy, but he's going to get the job done? And Evan Brown seems like he's going to move a lot of people because I think he's the strongest dude in that weight room. But
oh yeah,
but that's
I
the thing.
met him. Wow.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, just
How was that?
just the handshake alone. I'm like, wow, you cover my entire fragile little hand here. But he was very funny and very nice. So.
Yeah, and he's super, super smart. That's the thing that sticks out to me still, of like, he's definitely got to be their backup center if he doesn't sneak up and get a bigger spot than that. But definitely think he's still my front runner. But yeah, Isaiah Adams is right in that mix. And then from there, Elijah Wilkinson and John Gaines, because John Gaines, we still got to see what he does coming off that knee injury. I think they really liked what he was doing, but until we see him on the field, we can't really put him up higher than that.
So you're putting Evan Brown as your favorite right now?
Right now, with Isaiah just behind him, but because Evan Brown's got the resume to show, NFL resume.
Fair enough.
All right, number 2, what is it?
Running back 2.
Ooh.
How are things distributed in the run game? James Conner, running back number 1. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves him. I love him. He's great.
Yeah.
Who's 2? And that's between Trey Benson and Michael Carter. What's happening there? What's the kind of movement there? I know that Michael Carter kind of came out of the blue. I felt like at the end of last year when they were sort of doing that running back by committee that we talked so much about and that we both, I think, fair to say, disliked. And he was sort of the shining star of that poor running back by committee group. And I'm interested to see if he can take more jumps this season with less pressure on him.
Yeah.
Because Connor's going to be there. And so he doesn't need to be running back number 1. He doesn't also have to split carries with DeMercado. There's a more, I don't want to say flexible, but sort of like a more flexible role for him. He doesn't have to slot into running back 1. With that being said, I know that the coaching staff love Trey Benson. Everybody seems to love Trey Benson. He's also just like a very funny guy in general, but also has a high football IQ.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to see if he is already running back 2 in the Cardinals' minds. At training camp, is he the guy who's going out there? Also, what guy are they using at the goal line if Connor isn't out there?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think another question you can even throw onto that is who's going to be the odd man out.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a few running backs in that room right now. So, I mean, I would assume probably Tony Jones Jr. is probably on the outside looking in, but what about Amari? Because if it all shakes out, if it goes Connor, either Michael or Trey, that's Amari if number 4. So and I would imagine maybe they're probably keeping an extra back, but at the same time, what does that look like? Special teams and DJ Dallas, you got to also include in there too as a special teamer. So,
and I don't want to put a negative spin on this, but I'm also intrigued to see what happens if James Conner, he's older, he got injured last season. What if he gets injured again this season?
Yeah.
Or what if he needs to just take a game off? Or maybe he needs to lighten his load a little bit as the season continues to go on. Who moves up into that running back 1 role?
Yeah.
Like not even running back 2, but just who's sort of the sub for James Conner in that scenario? Right now, I think it's Trey Benson.
I do too.
And I'm excited by that.
Yeah.
There's all this optimism surrounding him and the team and how dynamic this offense could be. And to think that you have a wide receiver 1 who's a rookie and a running back 2 who at some point will become running back 1 for this team whenever James Conner moves on or whenever they're, his time is finished with the Cardinals. So I think there's that added bit of excitement about this young offense.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's interesting because I feel like Connor and Trey are very similar. Michael Carter gives you that kind of change of pace. So it's like, as much as I think Trey Benson is probably poised to be the starter at some point or another down the line, I still think Carter's going to get a lot of run as being that kind of shifty, come in, be that pass catcher type. So it's just, that's where I got to see. So for training camp for me, what I'm going to be watching between this battle is going to be Benson and Carter more in the pass game than the run game. Mm-hmm. Because I think they've both proven themselves. I think even though Benson's a rookie, you've seen his tape. I mean, the dude knows how to do it. Yeah. He's a home run hitter every time he touches the ball, feels like. So that part of it is who can really build that connection with Kyler, the quarterbacks, and who can really separate themselves in the passing game as a running back. That's going to be the big thing for me, because I agree with you right now, too, is I think Benson is the leader in the clubhouse, but I still think Michael Carter gives you something that maybe these other guys don't.
Yeah, and that sort of different element is then who they line up on the goal line. Then do they want to switch Connor out? If something maybe isn't working, like live in game, do they then decide to pull Carter out because he runs sort of a different scheme and offense and just has a different skill set than Trey Benson does? So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
What is your point, number 2?
Number 2 for me, these ones are hard. I'm going to go with pass rusher.
Okay.
We have to.
We got to talk about it.
Huge question mark. I think B.J. Ojulari is poised to take a big step this year, but what does that look like? What does that look like in terms of production? Obviously, sacks aren't everything, so can he get the pressure on the quarterback more times than not? You've got Dennis Gardeck there still. I think he's a steady Eddie in that position. He'll give you 6 sacks a year and give you everything he can. Zaven Collins, what kind of step does he take? They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. How much? And he said that doesn't affect his mindset, but
it has to.
Do we see a little extra fire from him this year? I think we do. I think he's probably a little more comfortable now. I know he's more comfortable now. He told us that. B.J. Ojulari is more comfortable in this role. So that's what I'm going to be looking at, is who can really separate themselves, because that's the big question mark. That'll help everything else on this defense. And I think with what they did on the interior of the defensive line has only helped that potential for one of these guys to really take a huge noticeable step forward and be that pass rusher that they needed last year, big time.
And who do you think has the lead in the locker room right now?
I think it's BJ. I think BJ, the way he came back, he looks bigger. And we talked to Drew Petzing today, actually, and obviously offensive coordinator, but he explained, can't really get into the competition side of things right now. It's still off-season program. Pads aren't on. Training camp will really see that. But taking that into account, I still think you can notice changes. BJ, you can notice he's changed. He looks leaner, but he's bigger. He looks faster. All the things that you'd want to see out of a pass rusher. Like, he looks that. Like, last year, he looked pretty skinny. Like, he needed to bulk up a little bit. He's there now. So what does that translate to? And I really do think the interior of the defensive line with Darius and Dante and Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols, like all of those guys in there is only going to free up more chances for them to actually get home more times than not than they did last year.
Do you think the size, like the physical increase in size for B.J. Ojulari, is the biggest difference between last season and this season for him?
I think so. I think the other thing, and we haven't seen this yet, but he told us, I asked him what's what's something you've been working on? And it was shortening his release, or shortening his stride, I should say. So that way he can, dig a little faster, get to the quarterback a little faster. So that's been kind of the thing that I'm going to be watching in training camp, is how much quicker can he get now, shortening up his stride and not taking those long lunges to get to the quarterback now. It should be more explosive. So.
I loved your little juke move right there, by the way. I enjoyed that a lot. Okay, there's a lot of question marks surrounding Zaven Collins and what is going to happen with him following this year. You said that you don't think that's really hanging over his head. What kind of changed just mentally and sort of out on the field have you seen so far from him?
Yeah, I don't think I've really noticed a change, and I think that's a positive more than a negative, because I think if we notice a change, and he's still getting one-on-one with his position coaches and Nick Rawlis, so he's still doing all these things. He's still very much involved, it looks like, from what I can see. So I don't see a change there. I just think we're really gonna see him get after it. I think he said when he got drafted that he loves pressure. I don't think there's been any more pressure than there is this year. It's a contract year for him. Who knows? He could stick around. They could try to work out an extension. He's got to perform, though. Or he's got to perform himself into a bigger bag with somebody else. So, the sky's the limit on what he can achieve this year. It's just now, can he put all the tools together that he's kind of built this past year, 2 years, really into this now?
And that'll be interesting to see. Something else to keep an eye on heading into training camp.
Yep.
I know we've reached point number one here.
Number one.
I know we have the same one.
Yep.
I'll say that.
We do.
That would be...
So take it over.
The cornerbacks room.
Yep.
What's happening there? What's going on? Kick it off. Come on.
I think we know two things. Sean Murphy-Bunting's a starter, veteran starter. They don't bring him in on a 3-year deal. They don't bring in a guy with that kind of veteran savvy experience to not be a starter. You got Garrett Williams, who I think is their slot guy, their nickel guy. Maybe could be a potential move around guy, but I think his home right now is still the nickel. But is Sean Murphy-Bunting a CB1 or a CB2? Who's going to be the other starter? Who's going to be CB1? If it's not Sean Murphy-Bunting.
Okay, I think he is CB1.
Okay.
And I say that because Max and Elijah sat right here a few weeks ago, and they told us just how much of a leader he is for this team, directly name dropping him multiple times about how he's, true, not by full name, my nickname, but just talking about how much of an impact he's had on them, even as rookies, that he's already like taking everybody under his wing. And he's like, what can I teach you? Which also is impressive because he hasn't even been with this team that long at all. And so then it's, okay, wow, he's really coaching up these rookies. So I think he's taken a leadership role and a position on the field as CB1. Okay. I agree with you about Garrett Williams, also because we know the Cardinals love to play a rookie. That's what they did to him last year, and he was great in that role. Now that defense, and specifically that room, left us with a fair number of question marks.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Throughout the entire season. I was trying to be gentle, okay?
No, a lot.
A lot. Okay, it left us with a lot of question marks. It left us with a lot to be desired. It felt like, I'll just jump straight in, they lost a lot of games because of them specifically and underperforming. And so there's more pressure on this cornerbacks room, even though they're young. They're young guys. I don't know who right now I think is that CB2 slot, because I think it's such an open slot with so many contenders that is why it's my number one pick. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on in training camp.
Yeah. Sean Murphy-Bunting feels like he's CB1. I will say that, yes. It feels like that's the way it's trending, but I also think there's potential that a guy like Max Melton could take it over. I really do. I think you go out there, you draft him where you draft him. They expect a lot out of him. And so I think he's very much in the mix for that. I think another guy, too, is obviously Keichel Clark is going to be in the mix, too, second-year guy. But I think Starling Thomas is a dark horse for that spot.
Okay.
Which, undrafted, dude's coming up the ranks. But he was another guy that I felt like they talked about a lot, just about his mentorship as a dude who really scratched and clawed his way to get to this point. So that's a guy I'm going to be looking at a lot. And Melton, obviously. Keitrell, the big thing with Keitrell, I think I'm just going to be watching how consistent can he get back on the field, because it was just up and down. It felt like he went right away, started, kind of fell out. So what exactly does his workload look like not even CB1 at that point. That's kind of like a
just generally
sidebar.
speaking,
Yeah.
his workload out on the field.
What's he going to do? What's his snap count going to look like?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so heading into training camp, what would be some sort of key things to keep your eye on in that room to sort of see who that CB2 could emerge as?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think one-on-ones are going to be big. Mm-hmm. I think who's lining up with who. If we're seeing Melton lining up with Marvin and seeing some battles there, I think that's going to show a lot to not only the people that are watching, but the coaching staff.
And they
as
already
well.
have a relationship.
Exactly. So I'm going to be looking at a little bit of everything with the cornerbacks room. Is who's jumping in the front of the line. Like even little stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Who's really making the effort to be that guy, or who's going to be the guy right behind Sean Murphy-Bunting?
And I think something that improves this cornerbacks room is the improvement of the wide receivers room. Because as you're going up against each other in practice, out at training camp, you want to go up against the top guys so that then your cornerbacks feel like they've really got some pressure on them to perform.
Yeah.
And now that you got Marvin Harrison Jr. out there, you got Michael Wilson out there, you got Zay Jones out there as a deep threat and a possible wide receiver too on this team. Mm-hmm. You're giving those cornerbacks a little bit more practice in a sort of in-game situation.
Yeah, and I mean, Greg Dortch spoke so highly of Garrett Williams, and Garrett Williams the other way too. Like JG's loving the battles that they're having in the slot. So that's something too, is like Garrett Williams very much is, I think that's his role, but he can expand from that. So that's something else, is how much is he getting moved over? Is he not really practicing with the safeties now? Is he moving back over with the cornerbacks? Because that'll just be something I'll be kind of watching too. But that's, not CB1, but it's still going to be interesting because who knows? He could easily get into that role if everything shakes out right.
I would say that sort of sums up perfectly why we both have the cornerbacks room as our number one question mark. Is there's so many moving pieces and there's so many spots that are open for competition that it leaves us going, all right, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
In, 3 weeks, a month from now, when we're out of training camp, to actually see what happens. I know. It's really, I have to say, it's really exciting because when I go out to training camp, it's a reminder that football season is right around the corner and you can actually feel it. And the Cardinals train at State Farm, which not every team does, which is nice that they train there because AC. Thank you guys. But
Trey made sure to say that when we talked to him this week. I think we said what's the one thing you like about training camp? He goes, AC.
Yes,
it's inside.
Yes, it's inside, and it's always freezing cold in there during training camp. I will tell people that it is freezing cold.
It's the weirdest thing. It's like, take a throw over just in case.
I know. I bring a jacket in my bag. I feel weird. I'm walking around in jeans and a jacket in late July, but that's what it's like. So with training camp coming up, it's always exciting because the football season right around the corner.
Yep. All right. Well, those were our 3 questions of the week for you guys. So be sure to keep it locked on the Arizona Sports app, 98.7 and Arizona Sports. You can follow me on TDrake at TDrake for Sports on all the social medias. Follow Lauren at Colville _ Lauren on all the social medias. And I do want to give you guys some homework. Reach out to your people. Make sure they're doing all right. Lost somebody recently. Love you, Mike. But you never know what people are going through. So reach out to your people. We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one.